Hello and welcome to episode 4 of GFD North podcast. My name is Ryan Woodhouse, and in this episode I'll be interviewing Sarah McCulloch. Sarah will be giving a presentation on the Sunday the 7th of August this year. So head on over to gfdnorth.uk, scroll down and you can grab a link to Sarah's work. If you also want to see interviews with our previous guests, you can head over to the podcast section to see those. You can also head over to the sign up section to get notified of when tickets will be available to the public. Now, just to give a quick intro to Sarah. Sarah is a hard surface concept designer from Liverpool. Her work covers everything from spaceship design, vehicles, props, environments and marketing art. Some of her past projects and clients include Eve Echoes for CCP. You've got Star Citizen for Cloud Imperium games. Recently we have Star Atlas for Sperasoft, and currently she's now working on an unannounced project. So today we're going to go over Sarah's portfolio and chat about a design approach to some of her spaceship designs and what her inspiration behind the work is. And we're also going to go over some advice she'll give on how to handle feedback in the studio. So without further ado, can I please welcome Sarah to the podcast. Sarah, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you for that intro. Wow, that was amazing. Oh, that was so cool. Thank you.
Well, you know, I tried and make out that I did it the first time off, but well, like I say, it takes a few goes. So I know we're going to go over your portfolio today. I'm really looking forward to going over this. I'm actually just interested to hear about your design process personally, and I'm sure everybody listening to is as well. So I'm just going to share the screen now. See your portfolio. Can you see that now?
I can indeed, yes.
Awesome. Okay. All right then, so let's just start off how about we just go over the Consolidated Outland Nomad. So I can see here you started out with some top view sketches of a spaceship design. So is this your typical approach? You always start out doing this kind of top down 2D silhouette before moving any further? Or?
Yeah, usually that's the first approach because you want it to look good in profile. So also the length of it and just the general feeling of the overall spaceship is, at this point, obviously you're trying to figure out what it'll just look like as a simplified form. So for me, these top-down views are always the first port of call that I tend to do, and then I'll drop them into silhouette to make sure that they look interesting. So it's good.
Yeah. And so for this design, was there a rough idea or a block out already, or were you just given like a brief and just given free rein? Okay, we want the ship to do X, Y, and Z. What can it look like?
So originally, the Consolidated Outlands already have a set of ships that already exist, which was the Mustang. So I just took already what they had and sort of just built upon it like bespoke, and just grabbed a lot of the stuff, as well as just even before this I look at the interiors as well. So got a lot of orange accents, and if you look in the Consolidated Outlands interiors, they're quite orange. So I grabbed a fair bit of that and just added it to an accent. This ship is quite unique in terms of, because it's quite a deluxe version of Consolidated Outlands. So it's very modern. And it's a really different approach to how Consolidated Outlands had built their previous ships. So we took a pinch of Consolidated Outlands, which they already had, and sort of just flavoured it with a new style in this one, which was really fun to do. Because, as I say, it's always nice to do a polygonal ship as well, which this one is very polygonal and very faceted. Which I really, really like to do. It kind of takes me back to like the PS1 era. It's like a modernized PS1 ship in a way, when you were quite restricted to polygon counts. So it's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, quite simple, like you say, quite simple, faceted designs. As well, I can see through these iterations, we've got lots of like exploration on just like the overall proportion and trying to include, like you said, that orange accent. I can see you tried to actually include it in every single one of these in a quite a unique way. But it seems that when you started out, some of these were going down quite a complex route, and ultimately it seemed that for the outside, is this the final option, this quite simplified one here?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So, like I say, what we tend to do is kind of go quite broad with our ideas, and sometimes you end up with actual happy accidents, which is always a really nice thing, because sometimes what you do is you just put two ships together out your concept, which is some of the thumbnails above are just two ships that I've done separately and then put them together, and I'm like, oh, I actually really like that idea. That's really cool. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of pick and mix, a few of them, and like I say, at that time, it's just like, just go for it, just be really creative and see what comes out in the wash, which is yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like sometimes when we're all going through this early phase of iteration, sometimes just combining some of the sketches that you've done just to purely see what the outcome would be.
Yeah.
You often come up with like these really weird shapes that you wouldn't, normally make with your own hand, and I always think that's, quite an interesting thing. It always seems to work for me anyway.
Yeah,
But,
it does, doesn't it? Because that's the thing. It's like, I think sometimes your mind tries to play it a bit safe, so
Yeah.
you'll always do the safe options first, and then by the end you've got quite a few safe options, and you're like, right, okay, you know what? I want to just go a bit mad here. So what happens if I grab this one and just put them together and see what I get? And then from that just initial one, which is a bit crazy, you end up with like a plethora of like different stuff, like shapes and stuff, and you're just like, wow, this is actually really fun and really cool.
Yeah, that's it, absolutely. And as well, I'm just looking at this one on the right hand side. This reminds me of the Mercury ship that you've done. I'm sure we can have a quick chat about that later, but I'm just wondering if that was actually related to that, or did you end up using that as part of an inspiration later on for that?
Actually, I say, I know it probably reminds you of it, but in my mind, I didn't. That wasn't intentional at all. It was just
No.
because I tend to lean towards more sleeker, like ships in terms of like its design. So I'll always try and go for smooth and sleek, because that's just my like inbuilt brain of trying to make a ship as smooth and sleek as possible for aerodynamic reasons.
Yeah.
So a lot of them end up with like a very slender middle section with a sort of offshoot of either the wings or like winglets and things like that. So
yeah, just very interesting as well to see how it went from having quite a lot of facets in some of these earlier versions, and then it kind of got quite simple. The body seems to have become very simplified as we moved further into the 3D model. It still looks, really interesting, obviously, but it's just interesting to see that variation here. And on this one, we can see something that almost looks like an osprey, or some kind of like landing craft, like more traditional type of landing craft spaceships. That's really cool to see. And so when you went over to go into the interior phase, were you working like back and forth with other members of your team, or was this one like more of a solo type of thing? Were you responsible for everything, or were you working alongside other people as you moved towards the interior?
So with the interiors, we have to obviously speak with design quite a fair bit to make sure that it's got everything that it needs in these ships, because I say they're quite complex, so they need a lot of stuff, even for like a single pilot. So it's usually between, I say, design and obviously who I've mentioned as well in my portfolio is Paul Jones. He drives a lot of the interior, and for this one in particular, there was a lot of backwards and forwards between me and him to try and get this as interesting as possible, because it was so different. It kind of it definitely shook the Consolidated Outland tree of how different it was in terms of what we've done before. So it was an awful lot of, do you think this will work? Let's just try it and see if it will. And then it was that, which is why we've done that half cut as well, is because we wanted to see the entire layout of the ship on both sides to make sure that the player has enough space to move around, but also there's enough points of interest as well, because there's like lockers in there, kitchen, and we actually, that little, in the one of the images, which you can probably see by the kitchenette, there's like a little chair that pops out.
Oh yeah, and this one here,
yeah. We were just talking about like if you're alone in space, you kind of just want to have a nice point of like you chill, have a breakfast,
have a little cup of tea.
That's it. I'm British now. I love your cups of tea.
That's it. Tea in space. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I need me brew in space with a piece of toast or something.
That's it.
And that just came about because we had all this additional space underneath. So we were like, it'd be cool to actually put a little seat underneath
Yeah.
and make use of that space. So it was just like it was a lot of nice backwards and forwards like that. It was cool.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's just one of those like believable details, because even on the spaceship design, you want to try and conserve space. But looking at the overall size of this, I was actually looking at a little bit of gameplay footage of the Mercury, and the Mercury compared to this feels like a much bigger spaceship. It's got like crawl space in the vents underneath, and there's like many different rooms. So would this spaceship be like much smaller then, and a different type of class compared to the Mercury, for example?
Yeah, this one is a lot smaller than the Mercury. I say this is just a one man spaceship. This is you going solo and exploring space, and it's got like a sort of it's got a lift on the back for like an additional single seater. I think it is sort of a transport vehicle, so you can literally pop your bike or vehicle on the ramp in the back and then fly off into space, so that when you do land on a planet, you're not walking everywhere. You can literally hop on your vehicle and drive off into the sunset. But you will always have your base of operations, which is why we were saying that the like kitchen, a bed is so important, because obviously you want to come back, you want to rest, you want to eat something. You've got a shower, you've got a toilet, you've got a locker. Obviously, you've got weaponry in there as well. So all those things we were just thinking about, like real world situations, like you need your point, your base, and that's what this is. It's your little home from home.
Yeah, I always found that really interesting just by watching the gameplay footage. Like every time you go to a ship in Star Citizen, all the little cupboards and all the little doors open, and everything seems to open out and be really thought through. So I always really liked that about the ship designs. And as soon as we mentioned, we were just chatting about the Mercury and brought up a couple of times. Maybe we can take a look at that now, because I really like this spaceship design. It's got really nice asymmetry to it and form language, and it just feels like a really balanced design. So really nice design. And I'm guessing you did all the marketing art as well. And,
yes. We that's it. We like on the concept team. We do a fair bit of everything really, which is nice to do, because obviously there's a lot of personal touches that you get to add on your spaceships, which is cool.
Yeah. And how long did you spend creating the Mercury? Was it like a few months?
Yeah, around that. I can't remember the exact date. It was quite a fair bit of time, but it was because it was so complex. It's just the nature of the beast of when you design a spaceship like this, which is it has so much like floor plans. You've got habitation, dining areas, for like crawling space. And then you've got the whole back area. You've got manned turrets, unmanned turrets. And then you've got co-pilot, pilot seats. And then you've got engineering, and there's a heck of a lot that's in there.
And so when you go in to create a ship as big as this, do you start out like really large scale? Are you just thinking about just the overall rooms, or do you approach it the same way you would a solo ship, or is it a different approach?
So how I ended up doing ships, which is something that I just sort of did by learning on the job, was we built our ships with the specifications that were given. So medium ships have to be a certain size, small ships have to be a certain size. So we would do the exterior, and then after that we would go in and see how much space was available in that area, and almost like an anthill sort of burrow into the spaceship. So we'd block out all the spaces or all the space inside the spaceship and start to chip away essentially from inside the ship. Obviously there's a lot of things that you have to factor in, like ship components and also landing gears, which is something that's incredibly important, and landing gears have to be hidden as well. So that was another factor that you have to sort of consider when you build something on this scale, especially with crawl spaces too. So that's how we did that, and then once we've blocked that out, we see if there's any additional space that we could use, which is why it ended up with a crawl space, because it's slightly because it's a slight arc. We ended up with a bit of space underneath. As you can see, it's got like a hump, So what it is a lot of the rooms can be shifted upwards, and you've got a bottom layer essentially, which we were like, wouldn't it? It was like, I think it was actually Paul that had the idea of like the crawl spaces. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have like smuggling bays? So we were actually like, oh god, yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So that's how we ended up with like smuggling bays and the the underneath crawl compartments and stuff. So
yeah. I remember as I was watching the gameplay of this ship, it's really interesting. You'll be in like a recreational room. You'll move a piece and a chessboard slides to the side, and you go into this red like a red tunnel. You climb down like a ladder, like into this like red tunnel, and there's like aircon, gigantic fans like moving in the background, and yeah, it feels really creepy. It's a really nice touch. It almost feels like a film or something as you go down there. But yeah, it was really interesting to see that as well. I can also see on this image you've got like a large access ramp leading to the bottom of the ship, and a lot of the ships and star citizens seem to have those. So
yeah, it's because a lot of people have one like a little craft, so they have like bikes or they have little buggies and stuff. So we know that people like to put them inside the ships and carry them off to wherever they want to go. So that was the idea when we come up with a lot of these bigger ships, was how many can we fit in, and it should have something like that, because you do want to do mountain buggy dune racing and all that and stuff. It's fun, especially when the planets are so big, isn't it? So you just want to go off, as I say, into the forests and stuff and have fun. And
that's cool. So did you get to design the the space buggies, the motorbikes and stuff for that that fit alongside the same what do you call it? The manufacturers, right? So does Crusader have their own line of dune buggies and things to go along with this? No.
So I know, that's it. They don't have their own. So it would usually be like other manufacturers. Like I think it's Grey Cat have one, and there's a few others that like bikes and stuff that they would. Nox, I think, is one of them. They go into here and you can get a few Nox, I think, inside one of these. So obviously, if you're with 4 of your mates, you've got 4 bikes. Put them in there, and then off you go. You can have bike races around, all the planets and stuff like Hurston and all that, and have a bit of a laugh. So yeah, as I say, it's good. It's like I say, there's a lot of good fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. And actually, just while we're on the topic of the motorbikes, I know you can actually cover other things as well. You don't just do spaceships, and if I remember, I've never seen one of these. Now, I'm not sure. Is this one of your designs as well?
No, this was one of my fellow artists. What it was this was Adrian's originally, and what I did was I hopped on with him, because that's sometimes what happens as well. Obviously, you work in quite a big team, so you have to sort of like do nice backwards and forwards, and if we just need like additional shots of like like these, for example, I'll just jump on and help out and do a few renders, or if we want additional stuff adding to it, I'll just hop on, model it, and we'll just render it out, and then help out that way.
Yeah, really interesting. And that's Adrian. Adrian, who is the designer? Sorry, Adrian.
Adrian Lucian. His name.
Yeah,
his name will be in the my description of that bike. I think it's a Tumbrel bike. I think it was.
Tumbrel Ranger.
Yeah, Tumbrel Ranger. So yeah, it's similar with that one as well. The one next to it, the Crusader, that was one of Michael Oberschneider's. The Hercules. Again, I just hopped on because we needed this interior shot, and a shot like this, actually, as you probably know, takes quite a while to set up. You have to make sure the outside light is correct. You have to make sure the light bouncers inside are correct. All the material isn't clashing with each other. And yeah, it was just setting it all up so that it was a nice shot. So that can take quite a while to do. So yeah, we'll just, if anyone needs any help, I say we were a pretty close team. We hop on and we help out and make some cool art.
This is it, and this is where your 2D skills actually come in, because I'm guessing you have to take all those things and start compositing them in Photoshop and like making like little changes and adding steam in the vents and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is where your 2D skills come into play, of making those market images look great. So,
yeah.
There's quite a few of these as well, isn't there? You've done quite a few of these.
Quite a lot.
Yeah. So there's an interior for the Drake Kraken. Yeah.
Yeah, this one again. This is quite a huge scene. So again, this took a lot to do. Like, there's quite a lot of people down there, and all the tables are individually lit. Same with the bridge shot as well, because there's a lot of light coming in from the bridge. So again, you don't want too much light to flood it, and then it get oversaturated, and you've literally washed your shot out. So all the screens are like Photoshop, and all I do is I just add a blue screen to them without any emissives or anything, and then I'll see what it looks like, and then I'll go in Photoshop and add a little slight glow. Any other additional glows, because I work in key shot, I just add as a pin light to just try and pick up some highlights here and there, so that again it doesn't wipe out the shot too much.
Yeah, you can see those there, all the small little details and the screens, and there's a lot of stuff going in there. So would you also go in Photoshop and add, say, like all the graphics on the floor as well, or would that be done in 3D? You would as well,
Yeah. We've got like Star Citizen has their own graphic artist, and we get like sheets that they've made for us, and they're also manufacturer specific as well. So they're all, you'll see them across the board, but they're all different. And like numerology all looks different, the wordage looks different, so obviously it starts to get its own feel, which is again very important, because all car manufacturers don't have the same looking words and also signage and stuff. So again, it was just super important that everything has its own unique identity as well, which is super important when you're dealing with so many ships that they all have character.
Yeah, that's it. It's like you say, cars have their own logos and their own fonts and all this kind of thing. So I guess it's really important in the universe that players can identify them quickly. So and there's another
that's
one for
the engineering. That's the engineering bay, and again, that's a bit more well lit, because obviously you don't want to be working in engineering in the dark, because that might be deadly.
No, that's it.
You might lose a few limbs,
I'm just curious, by the way, what is this guy looking after here? Is this like the main engine for the place then, or?
Yeah, it's the coolant bay. So it's all like to do with like, if you see it like a nuclear power plant, it's all making sure that it's running efficiently and that nothing's going to blow. So as I say, you've got a lot of, technical things going on in there, and that's how you control it. Because that's another thing, as you know, in Star Citizen, you've got sort of like a lot of panels to control the engines and shields and things like that. So essentially that's what that is. But the Kraken is absolutely massive. I think it's over 300 meters long. Right. So this does a lot for it, which is why you need a guy there going, right, okay, I have to make sure that this thing doesn't blow. And that was one of the landing bays as well that the Kraken has, because it's got a big landing pad, like a ship carrier. So this is one of the landing bays that it's occupied by Cutlass.
And just to give the idea of scale, would this be like a medium ship similar to the Mercury?
It's smaller than the Mercury, so I think that one is 20 meters, and I think the Mercury came out at 48 meters, I think. Obviously, I'm going back here about 2 years now, so it's been a while since I've looked at the size measurement, but I think that's 20 yards to 30 meters, I think. So quite big. I'm saying it's small, but it's only compared to some of the ships that already exist in the world. Because some of them are absolutely massive.
I'm going to say I'll have to check it out. I haven't actually checked out the Kraken, so I'll have
impressive.
to take a look at that.
I will say that.
Sounds absolutely awesome. Yeah. Okay. And while we're on it, I know this is another one of your designs. Is that right? So
that was one
Argo
of my favorites.
SRV. Yeah, you were mentioning in the description that it's totally different to the Mercury in terms of form language. And so is this not typically the kind of design that you normally do in terms of your personal taste? Is this like a bit more like clunky and heavy? And
Yeah,
so
that's
was
it.
that quite a challenge then compared to what you normally like to do?
It is. It was. It was. As I say, like Argo are like the JCB of like Star Citizen, so
Oh
they're
yeah,
really, really rough, and they can take a good beating, and a lot of the forms are quite, I say, quite hard in places, and very technical. So a lot of the engines exposed, and you've got like a lot of mechanical, sort of like hydraulic placements, and as I say, it's very very different to how I usually approach something, because all my stuff from what you've seen before is quite sleek,
yeah, yeah.
whereas this is just pure mechanical, and to the point. Like there's nothing on it that shouldn't be on there.
Yeah.
It's nothing, there's nothing fancy about it. It's built to basically do its job, and
That's
that
it.
is it.
And
It's a Jeep essentially, and a JCB. It's literally like no extras.
that's it. Quite interesting. And I've actually seen a salvage ship with a similar shape, but this one actually has a tractor beam.
Yes.
So this thing's pulling up. I mean, I'm sure another one of the uses is for pulling up crates by the looks of it. So, and so
Yeah.
was this your idea then to have these tractor beams like coming out the rear, or was this worked alongside another member, or?
So this this little ship is the SRV is called Service Recovery Vehicle.
Mhm.
So if you're stranded out in Star Citizen, then you're going to need basically a tugboat, which is what the brief was for this thing.
Yeah.
And my reference point was tugboats, and I had a huge folder full of tugboats. And what they had
Right.
on the back of the tugboats are giant pads to
Right.
stop the boat behind it knocking into the back of it. So that's where these sort of magnetic discs came in, because we had to have sort of track, because it was in the brief. It was like a traction or tractor beam essentially,
Yeah.
but we weren't quite sure of how to approach it. So that's what we did with the SRV. We sort of had a few little play arounds with certain ideas, but this was the one that stuck, because you've got your main beam, and then you've got your two side ones that can also come out and sort of flex to kind of pull you in a bit more and then keep you in place. Um, so I actually can't wait to see this one in game when it's in, because I can imagine people are going to have fun with this, because it can. What it is you can see the two SRVs there pulling a Connie,
Yeah.
and that's because of the weight of it. So two SRVs can pull something like that. So I can imagine when people get hold of the SRVs, they're probably going to be doing all sorts with them. I can't even fathom what people are going to do with them, because the community always shocks me with what they
This is
did
it.
with the spaceships. So
This is
I'm
it.
just
You'll,
like, yeah,
you're going to
I'm
say
just like,
you'll have players hijacking other guys' spaceships, I imagine, and probably tractor beam and all sorts of stuff.
yeah,
So yeah, that'll
that's
be.
it. I'm just gonna sit and wait and see what people come up with stuff like this, because like I say, it always like shocks me of like like what the community does with them, and like it was the best part about working on these, was like seeing what they do with them, because you'd like, I've seen videos of like it's like inside of a hammerhead and a little buggy doing like a race course inside it, and it's like it was just really amusing to watch, because obviously that's not what it was. That wasn't our intention, but I do love that. That's what someone's just like, I'm gonna try it, and what's the worst that can happen, right? So
That's it.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. And so with this design, would you also design the interior as well, or was that handled?
Yes.
You did as well. And I wonder if
Yeah.
are there any shots of the interior, or?
No, there's no shots of the interior. I think there was on the there was a manual of it, because every ship has like a manual.
Yeah.
But I didn't post them on on my portfolio.
Okay. So if people want to go see the interior of that, I'm guessing they can head over to robertspaceindustries.com and check out the interior of the Argo SRV just to see your design work on that. It's really cool design. Yeah, it's really faceted, and I really like the side view as well. It's really graphic. Like thick to thin outlines, and you can see all the functional detail.
Yeah, and I think if you scroll up to the back view of it, just if you go up a little bit,
up a touch.
Yeah. So here, actually, you can't quite see that well, but there's a window in the back of the SRV too. So just I'm pointing like I can actually see, but there's there's a back window as well. So when you're towing it, you can see the ship behind you, so that if it does dislodge or something, you can see it drifting off, or if you are being attacked again, you can see behind you and things like that. So it was just from building it was just something that we were like, if we cut into here, you can actually have a window in the back, and that's actually a really good idea because you can see what's happening behind you, especially as a tow vehicle. You need to see, and also there's like a little passenger bay as well for, obviously, if you've come and collected someone who's been stranded in space, they can keep an eye on their ship and also sit down and make sure that the ship's all right too, and hasn't drifted off into space.
That's it. So even on the Argo SRV, I'm guessing you have all those facilities for living on board the thing while it's actually on the job.
Yeah, as I say, it's just an important feature that most ships have, is you have to be able to essentially live in them. And you have to make sure that if you're deep in space, you can have something to eat, you can go to the toilet, you can have a shower, you can freshen up before your next job,
That's it. And Joe, it's funny you mentioned before it was inspired by construction machinery. I'm actually just looking at the cockpit from the side view, and it's almost identical to what you would see on the say like the I don't know what the proper term is, like the cockpit of a crane, right?
Yeah, that was my first.
Similar kind of window, or what's it called? The crane lifts that they have in harbours. Moving the shipping containers, and they have to have like the glass, the glass thing so they can see all the way through the floor and everything like that. It just reminds me of that straight away.
Yeah, that's exactly the reference that I used was cranes, and like I say, a lot of diggers as well are the same for this reason. And again, you can't really see it on that one, but the glass underneath, you can see the floor. So when you're coming into land, like when I was playing the game, it was something that I always wanted to see as I come into land, was the floor, because sometimes you kind of misjudge. So it was just something that I wanted for most of the ships that I built, was you able to see the floor, because I'm clumsy.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing as well is, as I'm looking at this, some of these forms almost remind me of a tank. So you've got like a tank hatch, and then they kind of like the faceted angles. I mean, I have no clue if this is intentional, but like the faceted angles remind me of those faceted angles that you get on like a tank turret. You've got this like kind of angular pointing shape. It looks really cool. So,
thank you. It's again, it was actually based off our other vehicle that we had at the time, which was the Argo, and you can actually see that in the second image. He's just on the floor in that second image, that on that SRV, he's just there, and I took a
this guy here.
There he is. Yeah. He's the little boy. Right. He was the main inspiration for the SRV, and I took a lot from him because he's just like he was one of my favorites ships, and there's a lot to love about him. So I just riffed off him quite a fair bit.
And was this one of your designs as well, or was that just somebody else's?
Someone else's, yeah. But that's the thing as well. It's like we have to make sure that they all fit within the same family. So I say design language is key when designing from the same family.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point to make. I think especially with new designers, is that ability to design within not only the IP but then within the specific manufacturer. making sure that the design that you create does fit within that. But I'm guessing that's something as well that you go back and forth with your art director on, and making sure that implementing the feedback from your art director into your work. And okay, that's cool. So let's see. Is there, I mean, in terms of Star Citizen, is there anything else you want to go over in terms of the Star Citizen world that we haven't touched on?
No, I think that's pretty much all I've got so far.
On Star Citizen. Do you want to have a quick chat about the Opal Jet? Because I was actually checking this out before the call, and I really thought this was a super cool design. I really liked it.
Thank you.
So, and the other thing that I thought was interesting about Star Atlas is that they've actually taken on quite a few other people from the Star Citizen universe. And when it first came out, I thought, are the two related or are the two competing? So, but anyway, but like I say, the design really stuck out to me. It's really strong. So, what was the initial inspiration or the brief behind this design?
So, the art director on this, Danny Floyd, he loves like being quite out there with the design language of a lot of the ships. So for Opal in particular, they like to push the boundaries of design. So that's what they're all about. They're like, let's take a design and shake it up. So with this, I came up with quite a lot of crazy ideas, and Danny sent me a great sort of reference guide of what he wanted, and we just sort of went backwards and forwards on this quite a lot, along with another art director that I worked with called Gary Sanchez.
Gary. Yeah.
He's again awesome guy and loves to push boundaries of design. So we looked at a lot of insects, which is what this is actually based off. It's based off like grasshoppers, crickets.
I was going to say, it makes me think. Yeah, it definitely makes me think of that with these like arms and also the small things remind me like antennae, like insect antennae and things like that.
It's a boogie.
Yeah, that's it.
So that was like the main design for this as well, and it's got like a suspended cockpit inside as well, so it kind of floats inside too, so it kind of can shift backwards and forwards and sort of feel with your body, the ship as well. And I say for terms of design, like I say, we had a lot of fun with this one because it's just totally out there with, I say, skins and stuff too.
Yeah, and is this similar to the Star Citizen universe in that would this be an alien manufacturer, or is it totally different?
It's human by nature, but as I say, they're totally out there, and it's very futuristic with the terms of design and things like that. So it's why you get a lot of, like I say, out there skins, and the back of it is also like a cuttlefish, and they change the skin, and it's like, as I say, in terms of design that I use for this is definitely one of the most fun I've had designing something, because it was literally like go wild with it, and I was like, right, okay, this is fab. So yeah, it was great making these. These were a heck of a lot of fun because they were just so crazy and graphic, and I had a lot of fun making these ones.
Yeah, and I can see. I mean, even on this one design, you went through a ton of different variations purely just on the skin. I'm wanting to help try and sell that to the player. I mean, you've got like 1, 2, 3. There's like tons and tons of variations on that. And I think the other thing as well is with the ships you did on the Star Citizen, you went in and explored a lot of the interior and what that would look like. Was there like a lot of I mean, I'm assuming by the size of the cockpit, there probably isn't a huge amount of space in the interior, but is there a cargo bay and some area on the inside of this as well, or?
As I say, it's like it's just a one-man craft, and it's all engine. It's just a powerhouse. Cool. It's all powerhouse. It's, as I say, it's as out there as you want it to be, and as I say, like, I can't wait to talk about it more, because as I say, it's it got put up on Star Atlases and stuff, and as I say, it's nice to be able to make designs like this, just that are totally out. It's like it takes all of the knowledge that I've learned from other places and puts it into here, where you are told to basically go for it and just be as crazy and as creative as you can with the spaceships, and we'll have a look at them all and let's just go a bit wild with them. And it's just, I say, it's a lot of fun to do these because they're just totally out there.
Yeah, that's it. And I know we've not really touched on it just yet. I know everyone's always curious, but what is your kind of favourite go-to software package for creating these? I know you mentioned Keyshot. Are you also into Blender at the minute? Like, it seems like a lot of people are really into it at the minute. Or do you use like Modo or 3ds Max?
I'm a 3ds Max user a lot of the time, but for like cutting into shapes and adding more finer details, then I use Blender. So it's a bit of a hybrid that I use because booleans in 3ds Max are still a huge problem to the point where they just destroy your mesh. So what I'll do is I'll build like a foundation in 3ds Max, just quickly block it all out, and then I'll pop her over into Blender, start cutting into it, and then start animating it and start to figure out what space we've got and what we can get away with, and just start planning it a bit better, because that's what I say. I'm sketching in 3D because that's how I work now. I just sketch it all out in 3D. And then
that's interesting. Yeah, because I saw on the other single person ship they did before, you started with the top down view of the spaceships. So for this design, do you not do any kind of top down 2D silhouette sketches? Do you just jump straight into 3ds Max then?
It's interesting about those 2D sketches, because I should have said those 2D sketches are 3D, but what I do is I render them out in grey in Keyshot, and then I'll paint over them. So a lot of those forms are actually, my sketching is literally that. It's putting shapes together, rendering it out on a white background, but they themselves are grey, or I say like black or something, and then I'll sketch on top of it. And that's how I sort of work it out now. And from that as well, I know the size, and I can start seeing how big they are, because usually I'll always have like a little guy there, and whilst I'm sketching I can see how big he is compared to the ship that I'm making too. So it gives me a good idea even before I've finished it what I'm working with, even in a very early form like this here, because it's like I've got the size that I think can work in my head, and I've also got the forms as well. And if I want to as well, I can do a very basic animation, like, you know, wings folding in or out, or, you know, stuff like that.
I think as well, just to go into that point, adding that guy in there for scale, I think is very important with spaceship design, purely because the scale of a spaceship, it can very quickly just either become, you know, ginormous or whatever. You know, so you really got to watch it, and you got to be super careful. So as well, okay, just to go to the next one. So we've got another. I'm assuming Opal. Opal is similar to a manufacturer in Starlifter. Is that
Opal
right?
is the manufacturer. Yeah, that's it.
And so this is another variation on this. Very cool, very sleek. It's completely different as well to the previous one that we saw.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you're going a totally different direction and brief for this.
Yeah, well, that's it. This was like a muscle car, but it's still got a retro feel to it. Yeah. And again, Danny and Gary were really liberal with it, and they were just like lots of nice backwards and forwards chat with it, and we were just like, you know, we want to have a big, massive front end on it and just be like solid, and, you know, just want it to be cool, and, you know, you want to be that dude with your glasses on, you know, going around space.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you say it was inspired by a muscle car, because especially in this view, it almost looks like the front of a. It looks like the front of a car, like a grill or something, and like air intakes. So it's obviously got the car style headlights. So yeah, it definitely comes across as a car, or even a Batmobile almost.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my inspiration from it was like, you know, Ford Mustang, GT40, you know, they're just big heavy muscle cars, just all American, you know, in your face, let's get the job done, you're going to hear me from 12 miles down the street, sort of feel to it. So again, this was great, because I hadn't done anything like this before, where it had a retro feel to it, but quite modern as well. So again, this was like, again, it's totally out of my comfort zone, but it was great because, again, it was like all the stuff that I'd learned over the years again came into one, and because I'd never done anything quite like this before, it really did, you know, it made me level up again, which was really nice because it has to resemble a car, but it has to resemble a spaceship, so it's literally two things that I love into one.
And that's it. I think as well, when you've been doing spaceships for quite a while, and then you start to try to let's look into car design and pull some of those shapes. I'm guessing it'd be quite tricky to do.
Yeah,
So,
that's it, because obviously cars conform to a lot of design configurations that they have to follow for obviously road safety reasons, which is why a lot of them look a certain way.
yeah.
So it was sort of going over that and then bringing in what I had learned from spaceships and sort of just putting them together, and again seeing what we got. And yeah, again, I was super happy with how this turned out, because I say I'd never done anything quite like this before, and it really did take me out of my comfort zone. And as I say, I was just, yeah, I was in love. I'm in love with the manufacturer of Opal. I just love the manufacturer because they're so crazy, a bit like me. So I'm like, this is amazing. This is great. So
Yeah.
I get free reign.
Yeah, I'm going to say quite an interesting. I'm going to say just about to say quite a fresh take on a spaceship skin. Like the color schemes and the graphic design is actually quite fresh. It's not actually what you expect for a spaceship. It's not the kind of like the dark black seriousness of other things. It's like I say, it's very like, colourful and out there. And, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun, especially like this one's like it looks like oil or something.
Yeah, it's like a canvas almost.
Yeah.
That's the thing with these. It's like I think like spaceships have a propensity to be really, really serious in nature, and you almost forget the fun side sometimes of like what spaceships can actually be, because they don't exist, right? So you can be a bit kooky with them. You can go a bit outside the box with them, because it's up to you to decide what it's actually going to come out at the end. So why not go a bit crazy with them and just see what happens? Which is why when we were sort of making it, it's like just have a bit of fun with it. And
this is it. And I think that's just to go on the point you just made. I think that seriousness of why there are so many serious spaceship designs is because I think most sci-fi films that have been released are actually quite serious in nature, whereas the ones which are a bit more like light-hearted and a bit more comedic, say what was it now, the Avalon and the City of 1,000. Do you know what I mean?
It's just totally out there.
Yeah. So there's that one, and like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This kind of like light-hearted, funny sci-fi, or it's totally different
just
to
not taking itself too seriously. You're just having fun. You want your muscle car spaceship in space. It's just it's just nice to have that, and it's nice to have people that understand that too, because we really should be outlandish with our designs, because they don't exist and people have never seen them before. So why not create something that's a bit fun and kooky and out there a bit?
That's it. Yeah. And also just go to this splash screen. So I know you did splash screens for Star Citizen as well. So some of these designs, again, I'm assuming this is like a mixture of other people's on the project and your own. Is that right?
That's it. So you can see a few little Opal Jets in the background there. And then there's the Pierce as well, which is a few of our other smaller ships. And then a collective art splash of other artists' creations too. Go on, sorry.
I was so sorry. I was just about to say this thing. I mean, obviously caught my eye straight away. Is this one of yours in the right corner?
No, this is one of our other artists. That's on over in Starless. And it's a completely gold Agrica, I think it's called, and that is alien. And as I say, it's pure like gold and stuff. So again, this was quite difficult to sort of light, because obviously gold, when you put light on it, all it wants to do is take center stage. So it was kind of like just getting the right balance of sort of colour right and making sure all the ships have their moment in the scene, because obviously you don't want to overshadow, because so many people have worked so hard. That's what I always find with splash screens and advertising. So many people have worked so hard on making that look as best as they can get it. You don't want to sort of make it look rubbish. So
I know you're
you're just like, you're trying to make them all shine in the same scene. So, you just want to make sure that they all have their moment in the piece. Which is why I try to give them their own space and light them sort of relatively well, so that no one's outshining the other one, which would be a travesty, because like I say, so many people work so hard on this. So
and when you go to make these marketing images, are you also referencing a lot of like film stills as well to give it that cinematic feel, or is it just something that's come naturally with time?
I reference a lot of films, a lot of sci-fi films. A huge one that I always go back to is actually Battlestar Galactica, the new season that they did. I say new season, it was a fair few years back. Also like Alien, Blade Runner is another one, just for the terms of mood and how they use their subtle lights, because a lot of it's in the dark, so that's quite interesting to see how they lit everything. Also Akira, again, primarily that's still shot in the dark, but he's lit in such a way that it's beautiful to look at, and everything sort of has its moment as well, which I find really important, especially in like pieces like this, that everything should have its moment within the piece. Even if it's faded into darkness, it should be there for a reason, to sort of allude to something bigger. So it's all very much like that for me.
Yeah. I think that's an important point to make, and actually just saying that, when we go back to some of these previous pieces that we were looking at before, in terms of using lighting to draw the eye, your eye immediately wants to go to, say, the warm lighting just on the centre left here, and everything else just like kind of drifted into darkness. And so it's like little things like that where you're careful with the lighting and putting them in specific places, because if we had like a super red light, like a warning light, right on the edge of the canvas over here, your eye will just go whoop, and straight to the side and look over here. So I think composition, like you say, studying film, just noticing how directors light a scene, and obviously there's things like leading lines and pointing elements towards your focal points, but like
it's being purposeful with your shots, and it's sort of like what you're trying to show and tell someone within just a shot. It's like when you take a photograph, it's like some people just take photos and that's it, but obviously professional photographers will try and catch that moment in time, and that's kind of like what I want to do with these pieces too. It's like that is a situation that's happening right there and then, and you want to show the story of like what's happening now, and this is just like, this is their daily life, so it's like, well, what would they be doing, why would they be doing that, what would the lighting be like at that time, and like I say with that cracking shot as well, when you see just two people standing together and you've just lit it slightly, what are they talking about? Are they doing something shady, or are they just having a general conversation? It's that sort of thing. And obviously sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so you mentioned photography. Is photography something that you also like to do in your spare time on the side of work, or?
Yeah, actually, I go to the Lake District quite a fair bit, and obviously like to take a lot of photos, and I think because I do a lot of hard surface and mechanical design, I like to go back to nature a bit and just take some images of nature and sort of like just cuts of life as well. Sometimes I'll just sit there and watch people go by, just for the interactions that people have, because it's good then to populate a scene with what you've seen in your mind. And as I say, it's just nice like cuts of life basically. That's what I try to bring into spaceships as well. It's just like, because he's like, come on, why can't you bring it in closer? And we've got plenty of space here. And he's just like, but you told me to park it there. It's things like that. And
that's exactly it. Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because it's something that's actually come up a few times now, just interviewing the other presenters on the podcast, is storytelling in your images, and not just in your images, but even on some of your prop designs. I know some prop designs call for a very clean look, like it's just been manufactured. But even just adding simple things like some wear and tear, some damage, somebody's added like a custom label to a crate or whatever. It just adds that extra level of life. And things like, for example, in this image you can see there's like tire marks on the floor, and there's little things like that here and there.
Yeah.
So just to add that extra level of history and story to a piece. So.
Yeah, it is super important, and even if it's like an image of like the outdoors, it's sort of like what you see there and then is you try and obviously show someone that this life is pristine, and obviously the leaves change color, obviously it's a different season, and it's like all the footmarks in the mud, and it's certain things like that, and like say tie marks here, so it's quite a space that's used quite a lot because people going backwards and forwards loading stuff. And here they're trying to be like we're trying to get as much space as we can, you're taking up so much room, but and it's just it's just simple things like that do add for me a lot of, because just situations that you're probably going to get yourself into if you were there.
That's it. So, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and like you say, it does just add that extra level to a piece, I think, and I always think it's worth including. Now, there's actually one thing that is completely different to everything we've spoken about so far, and I just noticed this gun design. So, is weapon design something that you touch on quite a bit then on the side from doing your marketing out and your spaceship design? Is this something you've done quite a few bits and pieces of work for in the past?
It was weird with guns because, like, when I started off doing the spaceships, what I did before that was it was the ship guns, and I studied the briefs for them, and just slowly started to slowly build up my knowledge of guns.
Yeah.
And then we were just like, do you want to crack at a gun? And I was like, yeah, I would actually, because obviously I'd built quite a few ship weapons at the time.
Yeah.
And Paul was nice enough to just be like, have a crack at the Gemini. So I was like, right, okay, let's see what we've got. So we had a rifle before this one. So I got quite a lot of reference of handguns. And my reference from this was the Blade Runner double.
I think I know which one you mean.
Yeah, it's Deckard's gun.
Pistol thing.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
quite big, quite chunky.
Yeah, I've got it in my head,
That's it's got like an amber handle to it. It's really nice. So it's like quite a nice chunky big gun, even for a pistol. So we'd have a look at that because it has that cooling mechanism inside it, which is that blue ring.
Yeah.
So and it's also very key to Gemini. So again, I was like, right, okay. And then from that, I ended up doing ship weapons and guns. So again, there's not an awful lot in my portfolio, but I have done quite a considerable amount of ship weapons and there we go. Yeah, so that's the Kraus and Werner ones that I did, but I've got an absolute ton more that I did. It's just I might ask if I can post them all, but there's quite a lot that I did, and I had a lot of fun doing them because again, quite hard surface, faceted. I love the animation, figuring out on them, and those as well were also influenced by the handguns that we had and the other guns that we had already in the family, which humans could use, not just on ships.
Yeah.
So again, it was sort of taking all the style language and implementing it into ships and vice versa. So it kind of just went hand in hand, really, which was quite nice.
Yeah.
And I found the transition, because I'd been brought up from doing basic to medium and then complex, wasn't quite the leap that I had in my head, because it kind of just naturally fell into place, which was nice. Because once you've done a ship, these aren't too bad to do.
I was going to say, and the other thing as well that I noticed was going back to something you mentioned earlier, which was making sure that the design language fits the manufacturer that you're working on.
Yeah.
And it's just to see the same principle applied to your weapon design. So I'm assuming like Klaus and Werner are the manufacturer, and they have this like angular, this angular form language with the negative space, and I'm assuming it's got its sort of like graphic design, with the little orange accents and all this kind of stuff. And then if we compare that to say the Gemini form language, it's quite, it's got these curves, like softer form languages, and also obviously it hints at blue, which makes you think of like maybe alien technology. And I also noticed this thing in the center. Is this, what did you say? This is like the cooling, or is this like part of the chamber, or?
Part of the chamber. So it's just like so their chamber is slightly exposed. Mm-hmm. So on the Gemini sort of family, you'll always see the chamber slightly exposed.
Yeah. And a similar process as well of going with a block out in 3D, going into the 2D side view, working into a little bit, going back and forth.
Yeah, exactly the same. I just block out. Obviously, we have a guy who's holding a gun, and then you just block it out sort of size-wise in his hand, and then render that off in like I say, I use Keyshot, and then sort of just build on top of that, and then go. It's literally that backwards and forwards process of just. I see it as like a sort of marble block, and then I'm just constantly chipping away. And obviously as well, I'll have like a sort of library of shapes in my scene of what I first started with, the middle, and then the finished product.
Yeah, really interesting to see, and also very important to. And this is purely just for the people breaking in. Just look at the amount of variations as well that you go through just on a pistol design, right? I'm assuming there might even be more than this, right? Probably another like 3 sheets, and you guys don't even see this.
That, yeah.
This is
that was just the sort of my picks from the sheets that we had done. So.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we often forget when we're on ArtStation is you don't see just how many roughs and variations there are on some of these ships and weapon designs and props and things. You can go through a ton of this stuff.
That's it, because I want to say as well, like a lot of my ships, how they first start off is just cubes. That it's literally just a cube, and then that's the size of it. Let's start chipping into it, and then see what we end up with, and start to just make some shapes. And this is a cool shape, let's just put that on the side, and then before you know, you've got like 20-30 interesting shapes you can start to bring into that sort of volume, and then just put it together, render it off, and see what shape you can build off. In that top-down view, just start building into it. It's cool.
Yeah, really interesting. And okay, so we're just about to actually hit about the 1 hour mark now.
Okay.
And I know we've hit on a lot of different things, but before we move on, is there anything else that we can chat about? Is there any other important points that you feel like we can cover?
I would like to say that, like, something which I'll probably talk about when I do my talk in August is confidence. As an artist, especially when you're first breaking in as well, is sort of having the confidence to pull something off. And that first year of you being in the industry is so important, because that's when you're sort of absorbing all and everyone's information and sort of taking the parts that you want to put into your work to make it actually, for you to be able to pull it off and successfully as well. Because I know the first year when I started, I was an absolute mess. I was just like making mistakes, and then I was like, can I use this information? I just don't know. And it's literally just like, it's so overwhelming, but it does start to stick, and eventually you will start to pull stuff in and stick, and then go, right, you know what? Because that's what the wipeout pieces were when I first did them. That was me 2 years at Star Citizen, and me going, you know what? I feel confident enough now to actually make a ship. So that's what I did with all. I was on props and ship items and weapons, and from that, I felt confident enough with my rendering ability and my 3D ability, and I was like, right, I'm going to build myself my own personal project. And that's what that came from, was literally just having the confidence to just pull it off with that just the accumulated knowledge. And don't be afraid of failing. Everyone's going to do it, and especially when you do break in, you're going to make mistakes. it's
so
just
true. Yeah,
it's
so
just
true.
part of the process, and
Yeah.
as long as you can recover from it, which we do.
Yeah.
It's just getting grazed knees, and then you just put plaster on and you just get on with it,
That's
So
it. That's it. And it's from those personal projects that I assume landed the gigs at Star Citizen, right?
yeah, that's
So,
it. Because when I was in my BA game art group,
mhm.
that's another thing that I will say as well. Constantly post your work, because that's how Paul picked me up. Was I was constantly posting my work in my game art group, and he could see what he said my progression from when I first started to when I was finishing up, which is when he approached me and he was like, "Hey, I saw your progress. Do you want to come in as an intern?" And I was like, "Yes." So that's what I did, and I say that first year, I was just like on me gripping me seat, like, okay, let's prove myself here now. So it
That's
was
it.
literally taking in information, using it, failing, going right, okay, let's study some more, going back into work, pulling it off, and then putting it into practice.
Yeah, that's it. And that idea of just constantly just going back and looking at your work and just thinking, okay, well, how can we improve upon
Exactly.
improve upon the last piece that I made? And just going through that, especially when you're a student, just like not giving up and
Yeah,
constantly pushing
definitely.
and benchmarking and checking, okay, well, what are the mistakes and what can I do next time? Is I think is so important. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's it. And don't be afraid to ask stupid questions as well. I know this is probably like a million people have said this, but honestly, ask stupid questions,
mm,
because sometimes it will save you months of work. Like, how do I do such and such in this program? And someone who has obviously been using that program for 3 years will go, it's that, and it will save you such a heartache and a headache and all that stuff. And like I say, just constantly ask
yeah,
questions.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for the beginner, there's so many principles. I mean, purely just design principles, right?
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of design theory to learn, and the only way you can kind of really get that into your head is by creating the work, practicing, making the shapes, doing the research into how things work, and then just trying to gel it all together. But it takes quite a while to get
just
to the point where you can make those good decisions, those good design decisions, and also the part of the process where you just reflect on your work and say, well, actually, it's not working, because of this. And then obviously you've got the working to a deadline and your time management. So it can be quite a lot for the beginner to take
Oh,
on, I guess.
absolutely.
So
That's it. I will say the first year is absolutely overwhelming,
mm,
and that's normal because I see it like a driving test. It's like you've gone from learning your basics to then the big bad outside world on the road, and that's where everything is sort of just like you're on your own. You need to sort of learn now how to be better and take it all in and put it into practice. And like I say, don't be afraid to ask silly questions, and it's fine to feel overwhelmed, but you've done it, so don't worry about it. Just keep cracking on.
that's absolutely it. Yeah, it's really, really important to keep your energy high all the way through
Absolutely.
until you break in. That's absolutely awesome. Well, okay, that's great. And anyway, so there's one last question that I have. I always like to end each interview with one of these questions. So here we go.
Oh,
So the question is: so one day the people of Earth will have to evacuate the planet. So who and what would you take with you for the long voyage out to space?
I'll take my two dogs for a start, because I need companions and they won't give me any back chat. And I'll take me.
So-
If I make a mistake, they're not going to call me out on it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It'll be fine.
yeah.
And I'll take my Wacom companion because
Oh well, that's it. Obviously,
I need to
actually,
doodle.
that's it. Actually, it's funny you say you take your two dogs out into space because I think in the early days they actually did send dogs into space as well as chimps and animals, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so. I think they honestly did. I'm pretty sure they sent quite a few dogs have been into space before. I don't
they
know.
have.
I don't know if they returned okay. I've no clue.
I
I
think
know they've
some of
done.
them did, but not all. I think it was
Yeah,
only a select few that actually did come back
yeah,
down to space, and I know they
yeah.
did lose a few dogs, but mine will be all right. They'd be with me, so
That's it.
they might be okay. But yeah, I'll say I don't want any back chat on a space travel journey. It's already stressful.
If you're going to be light years to the nearest planet, you don't. Exactly. I guess you got to be careful who your company is. I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I don't want any political or anything like that. I just want just can I go out, for a spacewalk, and I want some food, and I'll be like, that's fine, don't worry.
Awesome, great stuff. All right, fantastic. Okay, well, thanks for coming on. What I'll do now is I'll just go over to the gfdnorth.uk. So if you guys enjoyed this podcast, I'm sure you did, and if you want to come down on the Sunday, the 7th of August this year, and listen to Sarah give a presentation, she's going to go more in depth than she went here into her process and all kinds of stuff. So you can go over to gfdnorth.uk. Scroll down, you can find a link to Sarah's work here at the bottom, and you can also go over to the sign up page and get notified when tickets will be available. And that wraps up this episode. That's episode 4. So thank you again, Sarah, for coming on. It's been great having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Can't wait till August.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait for you either. Okay, alright, so that wraps up everything. My name's been Ryan Woodhouse, and thank you for listening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.